Number one challenge facing the probate judge's office, and what will you do to overcome that challenge?
As we've gone through this campaign, it was been pretty obvious that we try to, everybody's run a positive campaign and not say anything negative. You know, the thing that I will offer going into this office is to offer guidance and leadership to all the employees, to make sure that the work ethic is what the community expects, the responsiveness to the community needs is met, and you know, so when as Candy was talking about, as a young child, a person goes into that office and someone says, "Do you know who that person was?" It's an office that shows the community what the children can be someday. An office that the community can look up to, be proud of. Because that's what piqued my interest in this office. Was as a child, I looked at the Judge Hunt at the time, and I saw that he was a community leader, and that he was somebody that you could look up to and be proud of. I won't say that's the biggest challenge, but I will say that that's the thing that I offer most.
Okay, I think the biggest challenge is going to be basically money issues, you know, because as our current, you know, the state is basically screaming constantly about having no money. You know, they don't have money for programs, they don't have money for services. Then, as far as ways that I would work with that, I believe that the employees need an incentive to come up with cost-saving ideas, because no one knows the job better than the employees. And if there was some sort of like reward program of some sort, you know, a gift card or something, if they came up with a certain percentage of cost-saving ideas. You know, I think it's not just a matter of doing more with less, but you have to look at where your money's going and try to find the most effective way to, you know, basically get the most of your money. I would bring my business experience to the table as far as looking at all the different places money goes and where could we maybe shave a little bit at one spot so that we could have more to do something else that would give us a bigger service. You know, we would be able to provide a better service to the citizens.
I believe the biggest challenge facing the probate judge's office is the mental health issue. I've spoken about it before. I believe that we have a lot of hurting citizens, and it takes an awful lot of the probate judge's time to solve these. And when I said I would go back to the rotation, that did not mean that I would shirk my duties in any way, because everyone knows that and should believe and feel strongly that a probate judge's office is 24/7. It should always be that way. I believe, though, that it would be possibly more efficient if there were some people who could take a little bit of that burden away. But I believe that that gives you an opportunity and a challenge to come up with ways that you can solve these problems a little bit in a little more efficient manner. And, you know, as I've said to people in interviews, you can't really say until you get in there what you actually will do. And so I'm not going to lie and give you a lot of things that flowery statements saying what I would or wouldn't do to solve that problem. I will answer the first part, though, is that the biggest problem is the mental health issue. And the probate judge really has a tough job with that issue.
I would think the main issue would be facing budget cuts. I mean, statewide, everybody is some type of business are facing budget cuts all the time. I'm sure at some point that it may affect the probate judge's office, just as it's affected the mental health facilities. I know that the current budget for 2012 for the probate office is $751,000. From what I understand, the probate judge has done very well with maintaining that. And it would be my goal to continue to do that. Budget cuts may have to happen, and you would have to look at tightening your belt, working within your means. You would be working with the taxpayers' money, and of course you want to be frugal with the money, but you also want to continue to provide efficient and professional service.
I think the biggest challenge in the probate office will be the money issues. I know that in doing the budgets for the probate office in several years, you have to make adjustments on what the needs of the office is. So in regard to the money, we have to make sure that the service to the public is not in any way affected. So the effectiveness to run the office with the cuts that may occur is one of the biggest challenges I think that you would face if elected probate judge.
Okay, the Republican Party is in power in Montgomery, and all of you guys are running as Republicans. So what I wanted to ask, their point of view at this time appears to be, of course, cutting the losses with the general fund. There's about a $400 million problem in there, but not to raise taxes. So all the money in the general fund appears to be going to prisons, Medicaid. What would you like to see them do in Montgomery to ensure that the services such as the probate office and other vital public services are maintained at a level that's acceptable to the public? Would you lobby for any kind of fee increases or any kind of small tax increases if we get to that point? In other words, what would you like to see your own party do in the leadership role to help maintain public services at an acceptable level?
Well, as far as the party, I made some suggestions to our legislators before the session started, one of which was a bill similar to the ones I told you that have been passed in other counties that had probate judges with a law degree. What that would do is that would save money for the taxpayers, which is having to go to pay the circuit court judge to make these decisions, which could be made in probate court. Another suggestion that I've already made to the legislators was that the state employees actually be used as a resource to come up with ideas to save money. Again, if you don't involve the people that are directly impacted by something, you're wasting a resource, because they're the ones who know where the duplications are. They're the ones who know where small cuts can be made that aren't going to impact service, that aren't going to impact jobs. But that would, if you had all the counties doing that, it would add up. Basically, they're dealing with these big issues, and the way I look at it is, if we could save any money at all in the probate judge's office, it could be used for something else. If there's something that we could trim, anything. I mean, I don't think that we should raise fees. Fees are already very close to what the citizens we're going to get upset about if anything else is raised. Before even looking at that, every position should be looked at as far as, is it the most efficient? Is there something else we could do? Can we have one person doing this job and this job that's similar, and free up that person to be doing something else? So basically, you're just using your existing resources to the best of their ability.
All I can speak to with that situation is what I as a person would do and what I as a probate judge would do. And I believe that the best thing that you can do is to be a good steward of the money that you're budgeted. And so the best way I can answer that question is that whatever budget I'm given, I will work to stay inside the budget. If there's an organization that can be organized that I could be a part of, I'm sure there are advocacy groups for mental health agencies, and I of course would be willing to be a part of that, to lobby for more funds given for that kind of thing. But I believe that the best thing to do is, as a person, is to personally be a good steward of the budget you're given.
as with any business, you're gonna face budget cuts, you gotta tighten your belt, work within your means. The Republican Party, you know, down in Montgomery, as far as going and asking for more money, if they don't have it, it's not gonna do any good to go talk to them. And why would they give it to one office if they're not gonna give it to all? I am a true conservative Republican, so I will not agree to raise taxes for any fees to put a burden on the people. I believe that you work with what you've got, work within your means. Stick with your budget that you have, and if it's cut, then you just gotta cut back in other ways.
I too agree that even if the Republican Party went to Montgomery, if you watch the news or talk to any of your legislators, there is no more money there. There's no more money to get from anything. It's like everybody is at that level where there's nothing. So you have to look at the office as a whole, see what you can do within the office. If there's anything to be cut, maybe there's conferences. I know the probate judge, there's training for the probate judge's office, but maybe some of the training could be limited. There's all kind of things that could be done and looked at to maybe save some money if it came down to it. But I don't believe that asking for any more money when there's nothing there. I think you need to stay within your budget and run the office effectively. In all the years that I've been there, I don't ever remember a year or a case where the probate office went over budget. So I think it's maintained its budget very well.
I'm not for raising taxes.
Amen.
What major changes, if any, would you initiate in the probate judge's office?
As I've already said, I believe that the probate judge's office is run very efficiently. They've solved the problem with the congestion of the driver's license machines, and I honestly have not seen any lines. It's not like the revenue commissioner's office where at certain times of the month you have that big influx of people coming to renew their tax, and so you don't have like those huge amounts of people. I think these women and one man, Zeb, do a really good job in the office.
If elected, I would like to sit down with the employees. They're the ones that have worked there. They're the ones that know how the office has been running, and ask them individually, what do you think of how things are going? Do you see of anything that can be added, that can be changed, that can help service? I believe they're the ones that have been working there, and they would know better as to what changes could be made. As far as out, when I'm campaigning and talking to people out in the field, there's different things that people would like to see made, changes made, additions. Can those be made? It's going to be up to when in office and check and see if you can fit those in. I believe with any system, there's always room for improvement. There's always going to be upgrades. We always have to evolve to keep up with technology. And I would want to be there to progress and advance the office.
I believe that going into the office, working together as a team is one of the things that I'm going to emphasize more, that one person going in and trying to change things or make all decisions is not going to be good for the office. There are some things that I would like to address. I myself am more like a hands-on person, so I would work alongside the employees as well as do the job with the probate judge. I would like to see a rotating attorney GAL list and have the input of the employees. You know, not going into the office to fire anyone or move anyone around. You know, if you've got somebody that's good at their job, to leave them in that position and let them do their job.
Most time when people hear that kind of question, they're question goes to what Tammy just addressed, whether or not people are going to be fired. I have no intentions of changing personnel in the office, but the changes that we made will be made to Todd, and that's going to start there.
Well, as far as major changes, like everyone has pretty much said, you know, it's a mistake for a new boss to come in and just try to ramrod their ideas down everybody's throats, because you end up with employees that are very upset and aggravated, and you lose people that way. I have been an employee in that situation when we had a new boss come in and wanted to change everything from the ground up because he thought he had the best idea. I agree, you have to work with the people that are there. You have to streamline. Some of the changes I'd like to initiate would do, you know, as far as electronic access to some of the cases which are not protected, which are not confidential. I'd like to see a dedicated clerk for elder issues, somebody who has a specialty, who knows, you know, the ins and outs of all the elder law. I think the probate judge should sponsor some sort of wills workshop for people who don't know, you know, what they need in a will and that they need one even. I think another major change would be a flexible schedule for people who want marriages. And other than that, any major changes would be not major, they'd be gradual. Because, like I've said before, it's a matter of streamlining and efficiency. But you can't just go in there and say, I've got all the great ideas, let's do it my way. You know, because that's not a servant leader. A leader needs to go in and work with the individuals and be out front and not be willing, you know, be willing to get their hands dirty and do everything in there that they would ask anybody else to do.
Okay. I'd ask, all of you chose to run as a Republican. I wanted to ask why, to find what made that the best run for you. And then also, would you favor a term limit for this office as well?
I'm a Republican. I believe that in less government, less taxes, keeping our military, that I am pro-life, and I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. I'm very conservative in my values and my thoughts. And the second part of the question was term limits. No, I'm not for term limits. And the reason being is I feel that term limits are based on me, the voter. So if you have a person that's in there now that's not doing the job, then you can change that term limit by voting them out. So I like having a term limit on my own terms as far as voting them in or out. If they're a good elected official and you have term limits, and then they are ousted because of the term limits, I believe you've lost an asset to the office.
Being hired in the office in 1987 by a Democrat was one of the best things that I have gone through. As I've worked for the Democrat over the years, he never looked at me, or she never looked at me, or the administration never looked and said, what party are you on? Once that administration was elected, it was, we serve the people of this county, whether they be Democrat or whether they be Republican. We serve them all. As I could have ran for the office in 2006 and chose not to, it was because the values of the national party and my values were different. So therefore, over a year before I decided to run as a Republican, I went to the meetings and I decided at that point in time that's what the party that I was going to choose to run on. There again, when you bring someone into the office, you don't look at them in the issue of are you Democrat or Republican, you look what you can do to help that individual. So I decided basically to run as a Republican, not because of any personal attack on anyone or any party. I still have good friends that are Republican as well as Democrat. But I just chose because of the values that are different. The national level is where I made my decision to run as a Republican.
I not only chose to run as a Republican in 2012, I also chose to run as a Republican in the year 2000. And the things over the years that I have learned as being a Republican is that it stands for smaller government, but it also stands for the individual responsibility that we all carry, that we are all responsible for ourselves, and what we need is an opportunity to do what's best for us and our families. You know, we have a presidential election this year, and we all keep looking around trying to figure out who's going to be the next president. And I hear so often that, man, I wish we had another Ronald Reagan. You know, the thing that Ronald Reagan gave us when he ran for office was he said, I refuse to believe that our better days are behind us. That kind of optimism in the Republican Party is what makes me proud to be a Republican. And I want to be someone who can carry that beacon, if you will, for our own community. That I refuse to believe the better days for Coleman County are behind us, that we have a lot to look forward to. As far as term limitations, I'm not afraid of discussions about term limitations. If the public decides that's what they want, then I'll abide by that. But for this office, I do not see a need.
Why am I a Republican? I've always been a Republican. I believe that the government has crept too far into our personal lives, and I believe that we each have individual rights that need to be protected, and I think that our founding fathers knew that when they originally created the Bill of Rights. They had lived through the situations where they didn't have the freedom to speak, and they didn't have the freedom to carry a gun, and they didn't have the freedom to assemble. And I think when you get away from those original rights, you know, you've moved away from what makes our country great. You know, our country is founded on the belief that everybody can go and live the American dream. And, you know, I've been a Republican even since back when it wasn't popular to be a Republican, you know, in the whole, when everybody was enamored with Clinton at the beginning, and, you know, they just loved him and thought he was awesome, and he was still a Republican. You know, it's a belief, it's not just a party, you know, and I believe that we have the rights to own guns. And as far as, you know, it's why it was best for me, that's the only choice I could make. As far as that's what I am, that's who I am. As far as term limits are concerned, I agree with Ms. Warner that if you have an individual that is a good, effective judge or any official, that, you know, to have them thrown out because of some arbitrary limit is kind of a waste of skills. But again, if the people decide that, then that becomes the law, then that's the law. If there are a lot of elected officials who need to be thrown out and they can't because, you know, they're fighting against incumbencies, you know, or they've got, you know, big financial backers behind them, then that's something that the voters would have to decide. And, you know, again, it's up to the voters to determine.
When deciding to run, you as a candidate have to decide what party you're going to stand behind, because we are a two-party system. I chose the Republican Party because at my age, I believe that my morals, values, and standards more closely align with the morals, values, and standards of the Republican Party. And also, my political ideal is Ronald Reagan. And so that's why I was tickled when Philip mentioned him. The biggest experience that I've had, and my very first political experience, was actually being a part of the Young Republicans in Jefferson County when I was in college at Samford University, and campaigning for him in his very first presidential election. And it gave me chill bumps when he quoted him. And when you as a candidate have to make the decision of what party you're going to align yourself with, when you think of your political ideal, you're going to go with the party that they belong to, in my opinion. So that's why I made that decision. As far as term limits go, if Tom Burleson were to decide to run today, he would win. He's beloved in our community. He did an excellent job with whatever part of the job he did in lots of different ways. He was the ideal probate judge. And so I believe that that came from years of experience. And so you have more experienced judges the longer they serve. So I would never want to limit those. And of course, as Ann said, if the law were changed and there was a term limit, of course that's important.
All right, we're going to move on to our closing statements. As was mentioned before, each candidate will be given the opportunity to make a closing statement. It should be no longer than 2 minutes. The sequence for the closing statements was determined by a random drawing between the candidates prior to the start of the forum. Mr. Brown will start us.
My proven experience and qualifications makes me the candidate that I hope you will greatly consider when you go vote on March 13th. I am very thankful that I was given the opportunity to go work in the probate office in 1987 for Tom Burleson and learn all the job duties. I'm also thankful that I was given the opportunity to work for Betty Brewer and be in various management positions. I started in the capacity as probate office manager, probate chief clerk. I'm also very thankful that I was given the 3-year opportunity that I worked for Leah Lust. And I want to say that my running is not a personal attack on anyone or any of our administrators. It is not that. I love serving the people of this county. I love that office and I love the job. And I hope that I have the opportunity to serve as your probate judge. I have handled every duty of that office, from the driver's license to the marriage license to the hunting, fishing, to the boat registration to the business license. I've been in the recording department. I've handled the election process. I've heard probate court cases. I've married people. I've handled all that. And I fully understand that when there are probate court cases and there are opposing sides, that everyone can't win. But I promise you, as your probate judge, I will listen to all the evidence presented and I will make a fair ruling based on the law. Assisting the people of this county is the prime goal of the probate judge. And I have proven that I will go the extra mile for each of you. I have helped both Democrats and Republicans alike, putting the politics aside. And then I ask for the opportunity to serve as your probate judge. That opportunity to serve depends on you. And I'm asking on March 13th for you to vote for Tammy Brown, probate judge. And I want to thank you for your prayers, the encouragement that I received, and the support. Thank you.
I'm Bridget Warner, and of course I want to be your next probate judge. My decision to run for this office was and still is to help people. I feel that I can help my community and give back by continuing to serve in the capacity as your probate judge. I have over 12 years of legal experience working in the field for the attorneys assisting families with the conservatorships, the guardianships, the commitments, the adoptions. I've been the one to file those, make sure that the cases were handled properly, and that the clients were taken care of. When I decided to run for this position, I felt that if elected, I wanted to be the best probate judge that I could be to serve you. So while working full-time, I enrolled in night school and went and received my paralegal degree. So now I not only know about the documentation and the filings, but I know where to look for the law and how it needs to be applied in the cases. A probate judge does more than just administrative work. They are there to listen to the cases that are brought before them, and they're the ones that are rendering judgments based upon someone's life in these commitments. And a wrong move can be terrible in someone's life. I am also running on the Republican ticket as a true Republican. I have worked hard for my party for over the past 8 years. I currently serve as Vice President for our Federation, our Coleman Federation of Republican Women, and on our Executive Committee. I would be honored and grateful for the opportunity to get to serve you. I will be there every day. I'm asking for your vote on March 13th. Thank you.
I am a hardworking single mom of 2 teenage boys. And if you don't think that's hard work, believe me, it is. I've taught and loved the children of this county for 28 years. During the last 18 years of that time, I've worked during the summers as a legal assistant, which I believe gives me enough of a working knowledge of all the legal aspects of the probate judge's office. I'm familiar with the Alabama code upon which all decisions that the probate judge makes are based. But I believe that the thing that uniquely qualifies me for this position is that in all the aspects that the probate judge handles, just as the probate judge, not necessarily the rest of the office, but the decisions that the probate judge makes, all of those, all those experiences, I've had life experiences in those areas, which I believe gives me the empathy needed to make the correct decisions in those matters. If it wasn't myself personally, it was a family member, a friend, coworker. And I honestly believe that those things are invaluable when you begin thinking about who can best serve in that capacity. Thank you.
Again, my name is Ann Cersei Vanneman, and for people who can't pronounce the last name, it's just Ann. I want to remind you that an election is essentially a job interview because you are taking applications for who you want to fill the position for the next 6 years. And we as the taxpayer will be paying that bill for 6 years. And you need to be sure that you get the most for your money. The qualifications that I bring to the table for this position are the 25 years of work experience in the real world as far as managing businesses and offices, managing individuals, employees, handling customer service. Then I also have the education to utilize the office to its fullest potential. You may not realize, but to actually come before the probate judge to represent someone, you have to have a law degree. And I have represented individuals before the probate judge and before actually all the judges. I've actually served as a guardian and conservator for several individuals who are mentally handicapped. So I've had to deal with being the person on call at 2 o'clock in the morning when someone's lost their remote, or when they have questions about how to cook something, or they need to be taken to the hospital, or they just have questions. So I have actually been that person, and I have had to deal with my own business as far as budgeting and employees and all the different human resources aspects. So, and one thing you must understand is you cannot know everything in the law. Every case that comes before the judge is unique. I've heard some cases that would, make wonderful exam questions because they were just so out of the normal. And you can't use the same cookie cutter format on every situation. So laws are always changing. And consider the fact that if you were to having life-changing surgery, would you choose the doctor to perform the surgery, or would you choose the nurse? If they cost the same amount, either way, would it make a difference? So on March 13th, I hope you'll hire me to be your nomination for probate judge.
Well, my name's Philip Hicks, and I guess you can tell I'm very eager to be your probate judge. Trying to jump in line too quick there. The desire to be probate judge, as I've said, has been a lifelong ambition of mine. And how do you prepare yourself to be probate judge? I've worked in elections. I've worked in state government. I've held a cabinet level position in state government. I worked in the governor's office, working with the public, meeting the needs of the public in that office. I've also run my own business. I've been a family man. I've been involved with my community. As I said earlier, I ran for this office in 2000, and it was a very interesting race that year. There was 10 or 12 people running between the 2 primaries. My kids were small at the time, and they went a lot of places with this campaign. Was very excited to see their daddy running, but they didn't understand everything there was about a campaign. When that election was over, Charlotte and I decided that I would put my personal ambitions aside until the kids were raised. So our daughter got married last year, and she's finishing up in Tuscaloosa, and my son's a junior down there. As I said earlier, Charlotte and I have been married for 30 years, so I'm very proud of the family. And I use that as an example to say, I will be just as protective of the children and the elderly and the families of Coleman County as I have been of my own family. I'm Phil Hicks. I'm running for probate judge of Coleman County, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you again to each of you for your participation tonight and for your willingness to be a public servant in our community. We appreciate it. On behalf of the Chamber, we just quickly thank our co-hosts again tonight, the Coleman Times, both for your participation as well as your news coverage of these events. A reminder, Thursday night this week, March 1st, right here at the Coleman City Hall, the Coleman County Commission Chair Forum will be held. On Monday, March 5th, Circuit Judge Place 2 Forum will be held at the Coleman Civic Center. And on Thursday, March 8th, the District Judge Place 2 Forum will be held at the Coleman Area Chamber of Commerce. All of those events will start at 5:30, and there's no cost to attend any of the forums. Thank you for your attendance here tonight.